When we look at the human condition, especially in times of difficulty, we find that men, just like anyone else, can experience deep levels of suffering. This suffering can manifest itself in a variety of ways, and often it is not as outwardly visible as we might think. This inner turmoil may, however, show itself in subtle signs that are hard to ignore. The most potent and critical element of these signs is that they are not always immediately obvious to the people around the individual. More often than not, they reveal themselves gradually, creeping into one's life, affecting behavior, decisions, and the way one interacts with the world. It's crucial to understand these signs because recognizing them early could help address the underlying causes of this distress before it becomes overwhelming. The silent battle a man fights can have profound consequences, not just for him, but for those around him as well. Today, I want to explore 3 powerful signs that a man is broken, disconnected from his own identity, from others, and from meaning itself. These signs are often subtle at first, but if left unaddressed, they can lead to a deep and irreversible fracture in the person's psychological and emotional foundation. The first sign that a man is broken is an overwhelming sense of disillusionment with the world around him. He feels as though everything that once held meaning has collapsed. This is not necessarily an existential crisis, though it can feel that way. It is the profound feeling of betrayal by life itself. The man may have once had ambitions, hopes, and dreams, things that motivated him to get up in the morning and to move forward through the challenges life presents. However, over time, these things start to seem pointless. His goals and aspirations may begin to feel like illusions, promises never meant to be kept. What was once vibrant and meaningful begins to appear hollow, and life becomes a series of meaningless events strung together. This loss of meaning is often exacerbated by a sense of powerlessness. In the face of challenges, the man may feel as though he is constantly swimming against the current, struggling to gain any ground. No matter how hard he tries, the outcome never seems to match his effort. In the workplace, he may feel invisible, undervalued, or even irrelevant. In his personal relationships, he may feel disconnected or misunderstood, as though no one can truly see or appreciate him for who he is. The dream of success or fulfillment may seem like something out of reach, something he was never meant to attain. This loss of meaning isn't something that happens overnight. It occurs slowly over time as life knocks him down again and again, and each blow chips away at his confidence and sense of purpose. The second sign that a man is broken is an increasing withdrawal from others and a retreat into isolation. At first, he may still engage with friends, family, and colleagues, but over time he becomes more and more withdrawn. He doesn't reach out as much anymore. He starts to avoid social gatherings, turning down invitations to events he once would have eagerly accepted. Even in the presence of others, he becomes emotionally distant, unable to connect with people in any meaningful way. He may still go through the motions of interacting with others, but there is a profound sense of loneliness that accompanies these interactions. He feels like an outsider in his own life, as though he is watching the world from the sidelines, unable to fully participate. This retreat into isolation is often a defense mechanism, a way to protect oneself from further harm. When a person feels broken, they often believe that they are a burden to those around them. They think that their pain is too much to bear, and that their struggles would only weigh others down. The man might begin to believe that no one can truly understand what he's going through, or worse, that no one cares to try. As a result, he may shut people out entirely, convinced that his pain is a burden best dealt with alone. This isolation can also be self-reinforcing. The more he withdraws from others, the more distant he becomes from the very relationships that could help him heal. This cycle deepens his sense of despair and intensifies the belief that he is irreparably broken. The third sign that a man is broken is a deep-seated lack of hope for the future. He becomes convinced that the future will be no different from the present, and that things will never improve. This lack of hope can take many forms, but it often shows itself as a pervasive sense of dread or apathy. The man may feel as though there is nothing to look forward to, that the future holds no promise of change, growth, or redemption. Each day feels like a repeat of the one before, and the prospect of a brighter tomorrow seems like a naive fantasy. This lack of hope often stems from the belief that one has failed, not just in the eyes of others, but in their own eyes as well. They may have internalized their failures to the point where they view themselves as fundamentally flawed and capable of ever changing or improving. As a result, they stop striving for anything beyond mere survival. The fire that once burned within them to achieve, to grow, or to create has been extinguished, leaving only a cold void where motivation and ambition once resided. Without hope, there is no vision for the future, and without vision, there is no direction. The individual is left adrift, consumed by the belief that their best days are behind them if they ever had any at all. These three signs, disillusionment, isolation, and a lack of hope, are often intertwined, feeding off one another in a destructive cycle. When a man feels disillusioned with the world, he retreats into isolation, withdrawing from relationships that could offer him support and connection. This isolation in turn deepens his sense of disillusionment, reinforcing the belief that there is no hope for change. As the cycle continues, the man becomes more and more convinced that he is broken beyond repair. Yet despite the power of these signs, there is hope. Recognizing these signs is the first step toward healing. There is no quick fix, no magic solution to undo the pain and suffering that has built up over time. However, acknowledging the signs of brokenness can lead to self-reflection and, eventually, to the willingness to seek help. It's important to remember that being broken does not mean being beyond repair. It simply means that something within the individual needs attention, care, and perhaps even a complete overhaul. Healing often begins with taking small steps, reaching out to someone, admitting that things are not okay, and accepting the possibility that things can get better. This process is not easy, and it often requires confronting uncomfortable truths about oneself. The road to healing is not linear, and it often involves setbacks, moments of doubt, and periods of darkness. However, each step toward recovery, no matter how small, is a victory. It is a sign that the person is still capable of growth, still capable of change. No matter how broken a man may feel, there is always the possibility for renewal, for reinvention, and for rediscovery of purpose and meaning. The first step, then, is to challenge the belief that the future holds no promise. To do so requires confronting the belief that the past defines the future. The past is a teacher, but it is not a master. The future is not set in stone, and every moment offers the opportunity for change. It's not about waiting for the world to change, but about changing one's relationship to the world. This can be as simple as choosing to take action in small ways, reaching out to a friend, setting a new goal, or engaging in a hobby that brings joy. It's about choosing to believe that things can improve, even when the evidence seems to suggest otherwise. Second, it is important to recognize that isolation is not a solution. Though it may provide temporary relief from the pain of connection, it ultimately deepens the sense of loneliness and despair. Human beings are social creatures by nature, and we need connection to survive. Reaching out to others, whether through a trusted friend or a professional, can provide the support needed to navigate the difficult path of healing. It's okay to admit that we need help, and it's okay to lean on others when the weight of the world feels too heavy. Finally, it is crucial to reignite the spark of meaning in life. This requires rediscovering one's purpose and passion, what drives us, what gives us energy, what makes us feel alive. It may not be easy, and it may not happen overnight, but it is possible. The key is to remain open to the possibility that life can hold meaning again, even if that meaning looks different than what it once did. In the end, the most powerful sign that a man is broken is not the signs themselves, but his willingness to confront them. To acknowledge the brokenness is not a sign of weakness, but a sign of strength. It takes courage to face the darkness within, to seek help, and to take the necessary steps toward healing. The road may be long, and the journey may be difficult, but it is never too late to rebuild, to heal, and to rediscover the person you were always meant to be. The power to overcome lies within, and it is through confronting our brokenness that we find the strength to rise again. A man who is broken often shows subtle signs of deep internal suffering, disillusionment with life, withdrawal into isolation, and a profound lack of hope for the future. These signs may not be immediately obvious to those around him, but reveal a gradual loss of meaning, purpose, and connection. Recognizing these signs early is crucial, as they can serve as the first step toward healing and recovery. Healing from brokenness starts with acknowledging the pain and reaching out for support. It involves breaking the cycle of isolation and disillusionment, rediscovering purpose, and regaining hope. Though the journey is not easy, confronting brokenness with courage, seeking help from others, and embracing small changes can reignite a sense of meaning and lead to personal renewal. The process is gradual, but offers the possibility of profound transformation. In life, there exists a quiet yet powerful struggle that many men endure, an internal battle that remains hidden from the eyes of the world. This struggle is one of brokenness, of a person gradually losing their sense of self, purpose, and meaning. It does not always manifest in outwardly visible ways. While some may outwardly show signs of distress, others may retreat inwardly, suffering in silence. The signs of brokenness can be elusive, creeping in slowly over time, and it's often only when they become overwhelming that they're noticed by those around the individual. The struggle of brokenness is not a dramatic, sudden event, but rather a slow, insidious process, a fading away of a person's vitality, hope, and connection to the world. This struggle is silent, and often those who are experiencing it are not only battling their inner turmoil but also fighting the stigma of appearing weak or broken in front of others. A broken man, especially in modern society, is often expected to be resilient, to push through hardship without complaint, and to appear strong in the face of adversity. There is an unspoken expectation that a man should always be in control, unshaken by life's challenges. However, this expectation can create an environment in which a person feels that they must keep their suffering hidden. In this context, brokenness becomes something that one must carry silently, a weight that grows heavier with each passing day. The first manifestation of this silent struggle is the overwhelming sense of disillusionment with the world around him. In the beginning, a man may not even realize that disillusionment is creeping in. He may still go through the motions of life, working, socializing, and fulfilling his responsibilities, but inside, something is shifting. It's as though the world he once understood no longer makes sense. Things that once gave him joy and purpose may now seem insignificant, hollow, or even absurd. The dreams, ambitions, and ideals that once motivated him begin to fade, leaving only a sense of emptiness. This feeling of disillusionment is not just about dissatisfaction. It is a profound realization that the very things he once held dear, whether it be career aspirations, relationships, or life goals, no longer hold any real meaning. It's not necessarily that these things have changed, but rather that his ability to find meaning in them has diminished. What once seemed promising now feels like an illusion, a false hope that life will one day improve or deliver something meaningful. This disillusionment can be triggered by any number of factors: failure, betrayal, unmet expectations, or even the realization that time is slipping away without having achieved the goals he once set. The result is an overwhelming sense of futility. Life's events no longer align with the idealized version of success or happiness that was once pursued. It's as though the very foundation of his understanding of life has been shaken, leaving him to question the validity of his previous beliefs. The second sign of brokenness is the retreat into isolation, an attempt to withdraw from the world as a means of coping with the pain. Initially, the man may still interact with people, fulfill his responsibilities, and maintain a sense of normalcy, but gradually he begins to withdraw. This isolation may begin as a small act of self-protection, a need to escape from the overwhelming noise of life. Perhaps he avoids social gatherings, no longer finds joy in spending time with friends, or feels increasingly disconnected from those around him. What was once a source of joy, relationships, social interactions, even casual encounters, becomes a source of discomfort. At its core, this retreat into isolation is a defense mechanism. The man believes, whether consciously or subconsciously, that his inner world is too much to share with others. He may feel that his pain, his disillusionment, and his sense of failure would burden those around him. So he pulls away. Over time, this isolation becomes more pronounced. What was once an occasional withdrawal becomes a habitual choice to avoid connection. He begins to believe that he is alone in his struggle, that no one can truly understand the depth of his pain, and that no one is capable of offering help. This sense of isolation is compounded by the feeling of being misunderstood or unnoticed. Even when surrounded by people, the man feels like an outsider, disconnected from those he once felt close to. The most tragic part of this isolation is that it often feeds into itself. The longer a man isolates himself, the more deeply entrenched he becomes in his belief that he is unworthy of connection, that he is broken beyond repair. The very people who could offer him support, whether friends, family, or colleagues, may never know what's going on beneath the surface. The man's withdrawal becomes self-reinforcing. He isolates himself, which makes him feel more isolated, which leads to further withdrawal. The cycle becomes harder to break the longer it persists. In the midst of this isolation, the man may also begin to experience a profound loss of hope for the future. Where once there was the possibility of change, growth, and improvement, there is now a deep and pervasive belief that things will never get better. This lack of hope is a critical sign of brokenness, as it marks the point at which the man begins to give up on himself and his future. The belief that tomorrow holds no promise can be paralyzing. The man may feel trapped in his circumstances, believing that no matter how hard he tries, the outcome will always be the same. The goals and dreams he once pursued may now seem distant and unattainable, and the idea of moving forward may feel utterly pointless. This loss of hope is not merely about pessimism, it is a deep psychological shift. It reflects a core belief that change is no longer possible. A man who has lost hope often stops taking risks, stops trying to improve his situation, and simply drifts through life in a state of passive acceptance. He no longer sees the point of striving or pursuing anything, because the belief that he can succeed or even find happiness has been shattered. This hopelessness can lead to a kind of emotional numbness, where the man feels disconnected from his own desires, from the world around him, and from the future. The combination of disillusionment, isolation, and a lack of hope creates a powerful and dangerous emotional state. When a man is caught in this cycle, it becomes increasingly difficult to see a way out. The signs of brokenness, though subtle, are like cracks in the foundation of a person's psyche. These cracks deepen over time, slowly eroding the person's sense of self, their sense of worth, and their ability to function in the world. What once seemed like a simple setback or a passing phase has now grown into a profound existential crisis. The individual begins to lose sight of who they are and what they want from life. The foundation that once supported their sense of identity begins to crumble, and they are left struggling to understand their place in the world. Yet even in the depths of this brokenness, there is the possibility for healing. One of the most powerful aspects of the silent struggle is that it is not necessarily permanent. The signs of brokenness, while devastating, are not indicators of an irreversible fate. The key to overcoming brokenness lies in recognizing these signs for what they are: a signal that something needs attention, a cry for help from within. It's important to understand that the journey out of brokenness is not an easy or quick one, but it is one that is entirely possible with the right support, effort, and mindset. The first step in overcoming brokenness is acknowledging the struggle. This may be the hardest part, especially for someone who has been living with the pain in silence for so long. Admitting that something is wrong, that life is not as it should be, is the first step toward healing. It requires vulnerability, courage, and self-compassion. The man must be willing to look inward, to confront the disillusionment, the isolation, and the hopelessness, and to ask for help. This act of reaching out is not a sign of weakness, but rather of strength, a recognition that there is something worth fighting for. The second step is to break the cycle of isolation. This does not mean that the man must immediately reconnect with everyone in his life, but it does mean that he must begin to take small steps towards social interaction. Reaching out to a trusted friend, joining a support group, or speaking to a therapist can begin to rebuild the connections that have been severed. The key here is to start with small, manageable steps that allow the man to re-engage with the world on his own terms. Over time, these connections can help to restore his sense of belonging and worth. Finally, the man must work to rediscover hope and meaning in life. This requires patience and a willingness to experiment with different ways of finding purpose. It may involve revisiting old passions, setting new goals, or simply finding joy in the small moments of life. Rebuilding hope takes time, but it begins with the belief that change is possible. The man must begin to see that the future is not set in stone, that each day offers a new opportunity for growth and healing. The silent struggle of brokenness is a complex and often painful journey, but it is not a journey that must be faced alone. With the right support and a willingness to confront the inner turmoil, there is always the possibility for recovery, for healing, and for a renewed sense of purpose and connection. The first step is simply to recognize the struggle, to acknowledge the pain, and to take the first small steps toward rebuilding the self that has been lost. Through courage, vulnerability, and support, the broken pieces can be put back together, and the person can emerge stronger, wiser, and more whole than before. Healing from brokenness is one of the most profound and transformative experiences a person can go through. It is a journey that requires deep introspection, self-compassion, and the willingness to face painful truths. The path to healing is not a linear or straightforward one. It is often messy, full of setbacks, and requires a great deal of time and patience. However, the potential for growth and renewal that comes with this journey is immense. Healing begins with the recognition of brokenness, but it does not end there. It involves several critical steps, each of which plays a pivotal role in the restoration of one's emotional and psychological well-being. The first step toward healing is the acknowledgement of the brokenness itself. Too often, individuals, especially men, may try to suppress or ignore their pain, believing that it is a sign of weakness or that it will resolve itself over time. Society often places great expectations on men to be strong, stoic, and self-sufficient, and this can create a culture where vulnerability is viewed as something shameful. This belief that one must endure pain without showing it can make it difficult for a person to admit when they are struggling. However, the reality is that ignoring or suppressing pain only prolongs the suffering and prevents healing from taking place. Recognizing that one is broken is not a sign of failure, it is an act of courage. It requires a willingness to face the discomfort and vulnerability of acknowledging that something is not right. This recognition is the first crucial step on the road to recovery. Once the brokenness has been acknowledged, the next step is to accept it. This is not the same as resigning oneself to a life of pain or dysfunction. Acceptance means recognizing the current state of one's life without judgment or resistance. It involves allowing oneself to feel the emotions associated with brokenness, sadness, anger, confusion, fear without denying or avoiding them. Acceptance also means understanding that healing is a process and that it takes time. It is easy to fall into the trap of wanting a quick fix, to expect that the pain will dissipate almost immediately, but true healing does not happen overnight. Accepting the brokenness means giving oneself permission to heal at their own pace, to take small steps forward, and to embrace the process of recovery. During this time of acceptance, it is also crucial to practice self-compassion. One of the most damaging aspects of brokenness is the way it can erode a person's self-worth. When someone is struggling with feelings of disillusionment, isolation, or hopelessness, they may begin to internalize these emotions, believing that they are unworthy of love, support, or happiness. This self-criticism can create a cycle of shame, where the individual not only suffers from the pain, but also feels guilty or ashamed for experiencing it. Practicing self-compassion means treating oneself with kindness and understanding rather than judgment. It involves recognizing that pain is a natural part of the human experience and that everyone at some point faces struggles. Being gentle with oneself during times of brokenness allows the individual to break free from the cycle of shame and embrace their humanity. Self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behaviors or avoiding responsibility, but rather about acknowledging one's pain and offering oneself the same care and understanding one would offer a close friend in a similar situation. The first step toward healing is the acknowledgement of the brokenness itself. Too often, individuals, especially men, may try to suppress or ignore their pain, believing that it is a sign of weakness or that it will resolve itself over time. Society often places great expectations on men to be strong, stoic, and self-sufficient, and this can create a culture where vulnerability is viewed as something shameful. This belief that one must endure pain without showing it can make it difficult for a person to admit when they are struggling. However, the reality is that ignoring or suppressing pain only prolongs the suffering and prevents healing from taking place. Recognizing that one is broken is not a sign of failure. It is an act of courage. It requires a willingness to face the discomfort and vulnerability of acknowledging that something is not right. This recognition is the first crucial step on the road to recovery. Once the brokenness has been acknowledged, the next step is to accept it. This is not the same as resigning oneself to a life of pain or dysfunction. Acceptance means recognizing the current state of one's life without judgment or resistance. It involves allowing oneself to feel the emotions associated with brokenness, sadness, anger, confusion, fear without denying or avoiding them. Acceptance also means understanding that healing is a process and that it takes time. It is easy to fall into the trap of wanting a quick fix, to expect that the pain will dissipate almost immediately, but true healing does not happen overnight. Accepting the brokenness means giving oneself permission to heal at their own pace, to take small steps forward, and to embrace the process of recovery. During this time of acceptance, it is also crucial to practice self-compassion. One of the most damaging aspects of brokenness is the way it can erode a person's self-worth. When someone is struggling with feelings of disillusionment, isolation, or hopelessness, they may begin to internalize these emotions, believing that they are unworthy of love, support, or happiness. This self-criticism can create a cycle of shame, where the individual not only suffers from the pain, but also feels guilty or ashamed for experiencing it. Practicing self-compassion means treating oneself with kindness and understanding, rather than judgment. It involves recognizing that pain is a natural part of the human experience, and that everyone at some point faces struggles. Being gentle with oneself during times of brokenness allows the individual to break free from the cycle of shame and embrace their humanity. Self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behaviors or avoiding responsibility, but rather about acknowledging one's pain and offering oneself the same care and understanding one would offer a close friend in a similar situation. Another important aspect of healing is the willingness to seek help. This can be one of the most difficult steps to take, particularly for those who have internalized the belief that they should be able to handle everything on their own. The idea of asking for help can be seen as a sign of weakness or dependence, but in reality, it is an act of strength. Healing is rarely done alone. While self-reflection and personal growth are essential components of the healing process, having a support system, whether it be through friends, family, a therapist, or a support group, can make all the difference. Support provides the individual with a sense of connection and belonging, which is vital for healing from brokenness. When someone feels isolated or misunderstood, it can be incredibly difficult to make progress. But when they reach out and share their pain with others, they begin to see that they are not alone and that their struggles are valid. Seeking help allows individuals to gain perspective, receive encouragement, and access resources that can aid in their recovery.